Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Andrew Kercher here with Port Huron Museums. I realize we haven't done kind of one of our more traditional walking tours in a little while. This summer's been so busy with the events and programs. I thought, even though I know we've gone and looked at it before, this would be a great day to go over and take another look at the Harrington. Maybe we can see if we can peek, take a look inside, see if anything to see. But today, if you follow the museum's Facebook page, you might have noticed, today's actually the 125th anniversary of the opening of the Harrington Hotel. And, you know, it's so close to the museum, that's obviously where I am, that I thought I'd go over and take a little walk. It's a beautiful day outside. It's not too hot. It's a little bit of a breeze. And I thought this would just be a great opportunity to walk over and take a look at that. Like I said, if you've been through Port Huron, it's a building you've seen before. I'll flip things around here. It's a building everyone's seen. It's one of the most iconic buildings, I think, in downtown. But we'll go take a look, see what we can see. Apparently my Aunt Debbie's wedding reception was there, which I did not know. So yeah, it's I think a building that's important to a lot of people in town. Right over here, how can you miss it? And if you were anybody who was anybody for much of the 20th century, when you came to Port Huron, you stayed at the Harrington. So everybody from Thomas Edison to Mickey Rooney to former presidents, people like President Taft, I think, stayed here at least once. To future presidents, Harry Truman famously spent his honeymoon here at the Harrington Hotel. So as we walk by, I also want to point out, this is something I don't think I pointed out in the last video, when I know we went to go walk by the Harrington. But I love this building. It's one of my favorite buildings in the whole city. Mostly because I think it looks like a little face up on the top wearing a green hat with the dome. But this was a private home, and it's now a counseling center. I've been very interested. The more I look at this building, the more there is to see about it. One of the things that I find really neat is there is a gable at this end of the roof, an open gable. Oops. Whereas at the other end, it's a hipped roof. And I didn't notice that until, I don't know, probably a few months ago. But obviously, it's had maybe a replacement roof on that end. Very unusual to have a hip roof only on one side. So this building goes back to the 1860s. So it super predates the Harrington. Also, I know it's pretty windy out, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me. I'll do my best to stay out of the wind and speak up. Yeah, it's a delightful breeze today, although I know sometimes even just a small breeze can sound like a hurricane coming through on the phone here. So yeah, here's the Harrington, opened 125 years ago today. They had a great big banquet. Never let them tell you that they didn't know how to party back then, because their banquet went all the way till 3:15 a.m. So that is quite a banquet for sure. But they had the governor of Michigan, who was later actually the customs director here in Port Huron. We'll wait a second to cross the road here, but we can get a great view of the whole building. It's kind of this mix of classical elements and Queen Anne, which makes sense for the 1890s. There were actually originally more porches than what you see here. Some of those porches have gone away. And actually there was an addition onto the back of the building that dated back to like 1908. And that was torn down, I believe, around the year 2000, 2002. Still waiting for our chance to cross. I wish there were some of those handy like yield to pedestrian signs down this way so people would yield to me. All right, there we go. So yeah, right up until 1991, this served as a hotel, luxury hotel, and in the 90s this became an assisted living home. So for a couple of decades then, but back I think it was 2016, 2017, actually state law had changed and they required kind of some additional permitting, which they just weren't able to get with this being a historic building. It was very difficult for them. So that closed, but I think the current plans are to return this to being a hotel. And, you know, obviously that's what I think we all really hope for. That'd be really cool to have that downtown. There are so many great little elements. Like the, instead of having just regular balusters here, in the balusters got this beautiful ornate curved piece of metalwork in there, and access to the basement. So it's got all these kind of amazing things. And there's not much to see. We can see they've really, I'll see if I can show you with my camera there. They've really gutted the inside, because this has been a project by Jeff Kartofsky, guy who owns the St. Clair Hotel. He's a developer out of California. From what I understand, he's got more money than Croesus. But unfortunately, COVID's really stopped a lot of the work that's been going on. And I'm not sure if you're able to see this, but if we're able to look up into the second floor, we can see it's stripped right to the studs. So it's, you know, prime for renovation. I know they're actually cutting, I think, the number of rooms down a little bit. We can also see, when we're looking up at the building here, we can also see holes where some of those original porches were, that stuck out on the building when it was built. There's still some original pieces here, and we can see some pretty cool brackets on this kind of main porch on the second floor. But I know they had a lot of really big plans, and I'm just hoping that they've been postponed rather than canceled. I know they still have some work to do with St. Clair Inn. Another cool kind of stairway down this way that we can see down and around, a little overgrown. I'm not sure what was in the basement. You know, I honestly I've been to the hotel a couple of times, but didn't really have all that many reasons to go growing up, because by the time I was growing up in Port Huron, it was that assisted living facility, and I didn't know anyone here. So, and you know, my prom was like up at the Thomas Edison Inn. I know a lot of people said they might have had, you know, proms, special dances, things like that here. We can see the side entrance here. A little bit of vinage growing on the side, and more of these bay windows. And these bay windows you can see up inside if you're standing here. I don't know if you can see it on the camera or not, but again, stripped right out to the studs. So there's some major work going on inside to try and make this into, again, a luxury hotel. Not only was it a luxury hotel, but it was also kind of a luxury place where you would, you know, there was a restaurant here. There was a real high-end restaurant. This is the kind of place where you'd come hang out. And actually, I think it was this kind of green space that we see back here. This is kind of a vacant field. This is where that addition was, that was torn down about 20 years ago. So yeah, we can see the back of the hotel. Not quite as impressive as the front, that's for sure, but you know, back of buildings rarely are. And we can also see clearly where there were some connections here between this and the back that have been cement blocked over. I see one right here. Oops. I see one right there. I see the one right there. We can kind of see the shadow of an arch, and maybe you know, a couple doors up there if I were guessing. Looks like that connected through to that addition that just doesn't exist anymore. So obviously a pretty massive building. In the 1890s, 125 years ago when this was built, obviously this is long before 94, 69 or anything like that, but Port Huron was this major transit hub because of the tunnel. So many people are coming in on the train tunnel. We know that they had an interurban line that would take you right up here from the tunnel depot down on kind of near 22nd Street and Tunnel Street. You can see the side, a couple fire escapes here, and looks like some major work over here. There's like little islands of concrete, and I'm not sure what they're doing with the back here, but we've got some more brickwork out out. It looks like they might be adding a little portico, something like this on the back. Again, little side piece here. It's obviously a little bit later of an addition, but certainly one of the larger buildings in Port Huron for sure. We'll step over to the side and see what we can see. This is a little off the beaten path back all the way over here. But you can also see that the building's kind of like a U shape, so there's an extra area here which allows for extra light in, which is handy, because the hotel was built with electricity in mind. However, I was looking at some pictures this morning. It looks like it was also lined for gas. So they had gas light and electric light. It's not maybe too uncommon in the 1890s. You can see kind of the central little, not quite a courtyard here, but a central little cutout, so that allows for some more windows, some more light into probably some more of the rooms that otherwise would be completely an internal room. Again, another large fire escape on the side here. And up here, we're at ground level on the parking lot. So that's the kind of work that I haven't seen much done since 2020 on this, just because I think COVID has set everything back. Really hoping that that work will be able to continue. I know I actually originally had my wedding was scheduled to be here, but that's coming up in October, but obviously it will not be finished in time for that. So made some backup plans and then backup of backup plans, got everything all sorted, but certainly going to be a great addition back to downtown Port Huron, along with things like City Flats, the bank that's been turned into a hotel or is still turning into, I'm not sure if all the rooms are open yet, but it's going to be some neat little boutique hotels. I think that's, people are willing to pay a little bit more for an experience staying somewhere like that. People stay at bed and breakfasts, things like that. I figure that's a good opportunity there. So yeah, 125 years ago, one of my favorite things was reading the menus they had for that dinner and for that, they had a reception beforehand. My favorite thing on the menu at the reception beforehand, they served Tutti Frutti ice cream, and that sounds pretty good to me. But they had other things like lobster mayonnaise. I don't know about you, it doesn't sound great to me. I'm not a huge seafood fan, I don't mind some of it, but lobster, you lose me at lobster mayonnaise for sure. So I want to show you guys one other thing while we're down here, and I know I showed this in the last video, so if you saw the last one you'll get to see it again. But there's a really cool vestige. The building over here, this is obviously a garage, multiple bay garage, and it was built in the 1930s. And one of the dead giveaways, one of these like shadows of the past, it's still there. The garage is open, looks like it's a big warehouse now. But what I want to show you is up here above the door. Do you guys see those two symbols? I bet if you are a car guy, you will recognize those. It's a V8, Ford V8. This was owned by the local Ford dealer. And you can still see, there we go, I'm in the shadow. You can still see those logos painted up there from, going on 90 years old, because they're kind of underneath the awning there. But I think that's really cool. I don't know about you guys, but the little tiny thing I don't think many people would notice unless you really went and looked for. So one of the other things I know that I think will be really neat or exciting, I've heard there are also plans for like a rooftop bar over at the Harrington. I know the museum was in talks, hopefully getting them some photographs and maybe even a couple of artifacts to display, because they're really kind of leaning into history. How are you not going to lean in to the historical aspect of a building like the Harrington? I'm walking into a little alley back here. Just so we can get back far enough to see. That's kind of a cool view. I'm not a photographer, but I think this would be a neat, people from Port Huron would recognize this view, but it's not one that I think a lot of people have seen of the hotel. So we can see it's kind of like got this Renaissance revival with these big heavy like coins, the first layer. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I don't know why my gimbal doesn't want to stay up. I'll turn it off and back on again. We'll see if that works. There we go. So we can see kind of these coins, these big heavy blocks, or at least simulated. All right, I'm just gonna hold my phone. These big heavy blocks down here at the bottom. That was common on a lot of like Renaissance revival. You might see something like that in Venice or Italy. It's interesting, they're the same color. Sometimes they're a different color. Like another example of that would be on the old Port Huron High School, now SC4. SC4's main building has kind of these light gray coins down on the bottom. Coins, I guess, are right on the edges, but the blocking continues like that with the brick as a contrasting color. This is all the same kind of shade of red, and it really makes the white of these bay windows pop out, and the white of kind of the arch windows up here at the very top. And we've got lots of arches up here. There's just a lot of detail that has gone into this building that I just don't think you see with new buildings anymore. If you went to the local Holiday Inn, it's not going to look like that. You know, I know it's cliche to say they don't build them like they used to, but they really don't. We can also see one of the other details to take a look at. I'll walk up here to the corner, because we look in the round rooms here, which I think are going to be their big suites. They're actually full of doors. All 3 floors there are full of probably 50 or 100 doors. You have to imagine there's probably more than 1,000 doors in a building that size. Well, they're all off their hinges and stacked in there, so hopefully they'll maybe reuse some of them. Here's the front of that building I love so much. This little smiling guy in a hat up on top. You know, they added that giant pediment, which is the white part here with the columns. They added that later, and actually you can tell the building, I don't know if it looks better with it or without. I kind of actually tend to think, you know, it's got kind of an Italianate villa style with that tower, kind of an L shape for the building around it, and this pediment doesn't really match. Doesn't really go with it, but it's been there for a very, very long time. We're also right down here by used to be the Military Street Cafe, which has an amazing kind of Moroccan theme to it. And this is White's Art Hall. This is just another one of these buildings, and this one's easy to tell. White's Art Hall. It's literally carved in stone right up there. White's Art Hall. He was a photographer. So we know that a couple of visits, Thomas Edison, when he came back to visit town, he stayed at the Harrington, and then he came over here and got his portrait taken at White's Art Hall, this photography stop. So yeah, there's a lot. It's kind of sad that one's just a parking lot, but used to be a car dealership there, if I'm not mistaken. But a lot of, at least 3 of the 4 corners right here are some of my favorite buildings in town. So there you have it. There's the Harrington on its 125th birthday, one of my favorite buildings in the city. But I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of upcoming events. I probably should have done this earlier. I bet you're gonna turn it off now, but hear me out. There's cool stuff coming up. So tonight I'm doing a walking tour of downtown. It's gonna be beautiful. It's a free walking tour. Starts at 6. We're gonna start right at McMorran. But basically, since McMorran's under construction, we're gonna start at the parking lot just to the south of McMorran, where the Chamber of Commerce is. So we're gonna start there, go on about an hour and a half walking tour of downtown. So that should be fun. Part of the first Friday. There's gonna be a lot of stuff going on downtown, sales, all sorts of things like that, you name it. And then this weekend, it's the 4th of July. A lot of people have the day off this Sunday. If you're looking for a fun way to celebrate, come out to 4th at the Fort. So 4th at the Fort is a really fun event, something we're trying new. It's kind of a step back in time, an 1860s celebration at the light station, and it's all to benefit the Fort Gratiot Hospital. So that's the building we have on the grounds. It's the oldest wooden structure in St. Clair County. All right, I'm gonna try my luck. All right, Fort gets it. I think I didn't get across here. There we go. Anyway, sorry. Sometimes you gotta not be hit by a car. So, the fort is going to be at the Fort Gratiot Hospital on the grounds there. We've got some 1860s footage. We've got popcorn and lemonade, all sorts of fun things like that. It will be very fun. Geez, you ask, will there be alcohol provided? It will be a BYOB, I think, for this one. But should be a really fun time. If it's like having your own, little get together that you don't have to put together. You show up, it's already all set out. Anyway, so I'm going to walk back to the old beautiful museum back here. I got a couple other things to do in my office and a couple errands to run before tonight, where I hope to see some of you downtown at the First Fridays. So thanks for coming along and hopefully enjoyed our little trek. I know we've seen that building before, but it's worth going back and taking a look. Maybe you didn't see the first one, or maybe there's something you catch this time. That's one of the things about buildings that I find. Even though you can walk by the same building 50 times, in that 51st time there's something you notice that you never saw before. So it's definitely okay to look at some of the same buildings again and again, especially on a fun anniversary. I think I would have really liked to be at that banquet. I bet it would have been pretty fun 125 years ago in town to enjoy all of the amenities the new hotel had to show off, because they're showing off, right? It's new. You're really wanting to show everyone what a great place it is, so that way when people have friends visit them, you say, oh, well, stay at the Harrington if you can afford it. I mean, this was not a cheap place. This would have been a few bucks a night to stay there, which that's not an that's not a tiny sum in the 1890s. So hopefully, the one thing that the paper mentioned that I really enjoyed was it said that there was a speech given, and the speech was about Port Huron, past, present, and future. And I would be really interested in hearing about what they were thinking the future of Port Huron would be in 1896. There's Henry Ford. Let's see, what is today? June. Oh no! So Henry Ford had taken his quadricycle for a ride like a week beforehand. So this is a pre-automobile era. Nobody's driving any cars. Be really surprised. There's no cars in Port Huron. Probably had never been one at that point. Bicycles were all the rage. The trains were the way to get around and visit the city. So it's really interesting to think about what they would have thought the future of the city was. And maybe they were right about some of it, maybe they were wrong, maybe some of it they were right about. It'll take a while. We're moving away from trying to use cars as much as we can. At least I am. I like to bike and walk when I can. It's a lot cheaper, saves money on gas. So maybe some of the same ideas that they would have had about the future were right, but it just took like an extra 100 years to be about it. So anyway, again, thanks for coming along. Hopefully we'll see you tonight and this weekend for 4th at the Fort. And enjoy the history in your own backyard, even if you've been there before. We'll see you around.